Welcome to the Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys.
And I'm Blake Silverman, writer for Detroit Bad Boys, covering everything Pistons, and news writer for Sports Illustrated.
And Blake, man, I woke up this morning to about 4 to 6 inches of snow on my driveway. I did not expect it. I moved back to Chicago so I wouldn't have to deal with as much snow here in at least before January. And here we are. I feel like it just traveled back with me. So that's my happy holiday morning for you. Hopefully you guys are doing a little bit better than we are over in Detroit.
I mean, if you're getting that much, it just means it's coming our way. We do have some snow this morning over here. It was one of those where I didn't check the weather before going to bed, and I woke up to see some snow on the ground. I was like, oh man, I have to deal with this, but not too much over here, which is good. But I'm sure it's coming our way. It's already been a wild start to December.
It's just been one of those mornings too. Like we got woken up by our dog throwing up on our new carpet. It's like, we just can't catch a break. Unlike the Pistons who have gotten back on a win streak. See, that's a perfect transition, right? I mean, after about a year or so, a little bit more of doing these, I think we've been nailing these transitions into the actual basketball talk. Let's just jump right into it because the Pistons are on another win streak again, even with maybe the vibes not being the best on. Maybe on the online fandom space. They are still looking at 4-1 over their last 5 after that 2-game losing streak that they went on. They're playing some good competitive basketball still sitting number 1 in the Eastern Conference by, I believe, 3 games clear of the Knicks right now. Things are going well for the Pistons, going really well.
Yeah, and obviously we'll talk about it in a bit, but they dropped that Bucks game on the road Wednesday, which was a tough fourth quarter. Giannis goes down early, definitely a game you want to win, but they come back and they have a home back-to-back, which was tough. They survived against the Blazers amid crazy night from Denny Avdia, who is getting to the foul line like no other. And
someone on this podcast has been a really big fan of Denny Avdia for many years now, and I can't say that person wasn't really enjoying that Blazers game, especially given the Pistons won. That came at no cost. I just got to enjoy the show.
Yeah, well, it's funny when you look at the Blazers where the Pistons had a very balanced night offensively against the Blazers, which helped them in the end. The Blazers did not have a balanced offensive night. It was pretty much all Denny Avdia, Jeremy Grant, and Shaedon Sharpe. No other player was in double digits, and you have Toumani Camara, who's obviously much more known for his defense, but he fouls out early, just has 1 point on the night, and the Pistons end up surviving that one. And great night from Cade to 29 points, 9 assists, got to the line 14 times, 13 of 14 from the foul line. So that was a great win. Even though the Blazers are 9-14, they're a good team. They're not a team clearly that you can slouch over and come in and just expect to win. And then you have another game the next night against a team who beat you a few days earlier, and they find a way to win that one too. But Cade's been great. And I think over this past stretch, I've gotten a little of the vibe that maybe everyone feels that things are coming down to earth a bit after the long winning streak, but they're still finding ways to win games. And I think it's thanks to a few different players who sort of switch having their night on different nights. Against the Blazers, we saw Jaden Ivey struggle. Ron Holland had a great game, 17 points for him, made three of his 6 3-point attempts. And then against the Bucks the next night, it sort of switches a little bit. Like Ron Holland was 0 for 8 from the field, and then Jaden Ivey goes ahead and makes 3 huge threes that really helped open up the game for the Pistons. So I've been enjoying just how balanced the team is, and different guys are taking their turn to have their night and find ways to win these games and against teams that they should beat, which is what good teams do. And the Pistons have been doing that for the most part lately.
I think the two guys you brought up there, well, you brought up three, and we are going to hit on all three of them, but the two that I really thought stood out as incredibly impactful, on the one hand, Duncan Robinson, and that kind of goes without saying at this point, right? When the Bucks get that big comeback victory in Milwaukee over the Pistons, how do they do it? They force the Pistons to slow down their offense with that zone. Pistons didn't have the shooters that could counter it, and everything got all gunked up, right? Well, Duncan Robinson comes back the next game against the Blazers, and what does he do? Well, just a cool 4 for 6 from three. The Blazers tried. They went zone a few times. The Bucks did last night as well. We're recording here on a Sunday morning. The Bucks went zone quite a bit last night as well against the Pistons, and it just didn't work as well. You know why? They had a shooter now, right? So a zone's really tough to beat if you only have one off-ball shooter out on the floor. The Pistons now have two, right? When Duncan Robinson's healthy, they have two. You've got Tobias Harris out there. He can usually hit an open three if you give it to him. And then Duncan Robinson, you got to keep your attention on. So that has been a game changer. I think you have to start giving Duncan his flowers. I mean, for whatever he is defensively and the struggles he's had on that side of the ball, he is vital to this team's success right now.
Yeah, 100%. And I thought last night against the Bucks specifically, like, huge credit to Isaiah Stewart as well. Tobias Harris doesn't play. Stewart gets into the starting lineup, is playing alongside Duncan, Jalen Duren, and Asar Thompson. I thought Stu had one of the quotes of the year at his halftime interview where he said it's a grown man's game and these guys are playing zone and they just have to keep moving it around to beat it. I thought that was awesome. And Stu goes ahead and makes 3-pointers of his own too. So he rose up a bit, which we've seen from Isaiah Stewart a ton. It's not shocking and everything he does defensively too, but it's specifically awesome to see him have nights like that, shooting the ball, because we all know he's more than capable of it. And especially against the Bucks in a game where Duncan Robinson goes 1 for 6 from three, it's huge to have Isaiah Stewart do what he did. So sort of going back to, it's just different guys are taking their turns. Duncan Robinson had a 4 for 6 night from deep against the Blazers and didn't really have it as much against the Bucks. So you had Jaden Ivey, Isaiah Stewart, and even Karis LeVert off the bench step up to help with the big talking point with shooting when you don't have Tobias Harris on the floor.
And we got a good question here from Pistons fan 11. Says, what's the best way to counter zone given the current roster? He says maybe Lanier or Sasser getting some more minutes. What do you think, Blake? Like how should this team go about breaking those zones?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll go back to what Isaiah Stewart was saying and just constantly moving the ball. And like you said, Wes, if you have additional shooters on the floor that can only help you, I think why teams are trying this against the Pistons and why for a bit when they're getting the zone thrown at them, it feels a little like, has the rest of the league figured out how to defend the Pistons? I think it worked at times because the shots haven't been there, or maybe you only have one shooter on the floor and the spacing was an issue. But I think if they do just make it a huge point to make the extra pass, keep the ball moving, we know Cade is going to keep doing what he does to keep the offense going. But if you have Duren and Asar out there who neither of them took a 3-point attempt, and you don't want either of them to take a 3-point attempt, you have to have at least two other shooters out there around Cade to help them get around that defense. So I think the Pistons they almost have a little bit of a target on their back too. And they just need to find ways to figure that out. I think it worked well against the Bucks last night, against the Blazers too. But JB just has to make sure to keep spacing out there alongside Cade, especially when you have a roster where two big pieces of it are non-shooters.
Yeah, and what I was going to add too, Sharon Dalton just brought it up here in our live chat, but get Cade in the middle, right? So against the zone, you want your best playmaker, specifically against a 2-3. This shifts a little bit if they're going to do maybe an expanded 1-3-1, but you don't see that too much. The Blazers went kind of a hybrid 3-2-2-3 extended, and the Bucks were a pretty basic 2-3, right? The way you beat the zone is you get your best playmaker right on the free throw line, and you start attacking downhill, because if you get the ball at the free throw line, you got two defenders behind you. You're looking at 3, and you can have a 4-on-3. The trick is, though, like we said, you got to make shots, right? So the thing with the zone is it's actually pretty easy to get good looks. You got to make them, though. That's the thing. So the reason the Pistons have been seeing so much zone, I think, is because of two things. One, like you said, the floor spacing is a little bit of a concern that congests the floor and makes you less worried about having someone go, off as a shooter, at least outside of Duncan Robinson. With the zone, you pack the paint, which is where the Pistons do a ton of their scoring, and the Pistons do a ton of pick and roll ball handling reps with Cade and Duren, and it's really tough to operate a pick and roll against the zone. So you have to beat them with ball movement. You have to beat them with shooting. And you really only need 3 or 4 possessions in a row, right, where you can just break it. It's kind of like a press in the NBA. If you break the zone 3 or 4 times straight, you pull the team out of it. You just need to prove to them that you can beat it. Because, again, zones are pretty easy to get open shots with. You just have to make them when you get them. And you see that, right? The Pistons have had some really nice zone-breaking reps. When against the Bucks, when they were making more of their shots, you had Asar Thompson, Javonte Green cutting into open space and getting just the easiest of dunks you've seen on an NBA court in probably all season. All right. That's the thing. That's the reason the Bucks had to pull out of it. The Pistons did that 2 or 3 times and they went, oh crap. Okay, well, we can't do this anymore. You just have to have the shooters to force them to spread out a little bit, which opens up the cutting lanes, which makes Cade that much better, a playmaker, more of a threat there in the middle, makes the low man who's at the front of the rim even a little bit more concerned, right? Do I need to be watching my peripherals for a cutter coming at me? Do I need to step up to Cade? He has the ball as the shooter. You think I would, but now that second of indecisiveness gets Cade a little free throw line jumper. It's actually pretty easy. I don't think this is some kryptonite for Detroit. They just need to be healthy, right? Like you saw it against the Bucks. They have enough shooters other than Duncan Robinson, where if Robinson's on the court, even if he's having an off night, he's going to be guarded like he's hot. So if other guys start making shots, if you have Stewart do what he did against the Bucks, going where do you 3 for 5? If you have Jaden Ivey 3 for 3, Karis LeVert 3 for 5, Javonte Green 2 for 4. Like, yeah, you're gonna pull the Bucks out of that zone real quick. So as long as they can keep doing that, as long as other guys can make the open shots when they get them, I think that this is gonna look pretty good. It shouldn't be too much of an issue.
Yeah, and I think it's one where, I mean, all the talk we've had about Ron Holland and his shot coming along, if obviously he didn't have a great night offensively against Milwaukee, but the night before he went ahead and made 3 threes, and it's certainly been up and down. Like, he's had his fair share of off nights, his nights where he's looked better, but if that shot continues and Ron gets more minutes, I think he can be a big addition to just help in like breaking that zone defense. Because I mean, what if we saw Paul Reed get action against the Bucks? Like, what if we see JB want to bring Stewart off the bench if Tobias is missing an extended period of time, and you see Ron Holland in the starting lineup? Okay, so Ron has to shoot in that instance. I don't think we've fully seen that consistency from him, but we've seen that it's there. So if he just continues to grow as a shooter and can serve as that secondary, almost floor spacing threat, in addition to Duncan Robinson or Karis LeVert or Ivy or whoever's on the floor aside Cade, I think that would be a big help too, and would help JB sort of make his life a bit easier, as you do see injuries pop up. Luckily, Paul Reed has always been good in his minutes, so I don't think it's a huge concern. Like, you don't want to not play Paul Reed, but it is an option if you want to keep things more or less the same if you do have a player like Tobias Harris that isn't available.
All right, a couple of quick ones, and then we'll move on from the zone talk. Cam52113 says, does anyone know why we don't have another game till Friday? NBA Cup, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much it. So they don't play non-cup games during the cup game schedule. So I believe the Pistons are just waiting for that to end, and then they have kind of a condensed, they get an extra game thrown in there later on. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think the Pistons got a little, I mean, obviously they're not playing today as we're recording on a Sunday because they are coming off a back-to-back. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is all cup games. So if the Pistons did beat Orlando and made it to the knockout round of the cup, then we would have saw them this week. But obviously the NBA wants to put all focus on this event that they're putting so much effort and time and money into. And then we'll see the Pistons back on Friday, and they do get that extra game at some point. Honestly, we were talking about this before we recorded. We're not sure when it's happening, but yeah, a little bit of a breather I think is good, especially when you have Tobias Harris go down with an ankle sprain, so it gives him more time to get back to.
Yeah. All right. So Michael Dompier says Asar seems to be attacking more instead of shooting when left wide open. Is that helping? Robbie says felt like Asar played more up top with the ball offensively in this game. To both of those, absolutely yes. That's been fantastic. That's how you beat the zone, right? Like, you need Cade to be in the middle. You don't want him to bring the ball up, kick it over to the wing, and then work to the middle. You want to get him up the court quick and then just kind of lift him up to that free throw line, which they did quite a bit there, excuse me, against the Bucks, which was great. And then Sharon says, oh wait, no, this was Mimsy313, says that the middle of the floor looked open most of the time. Why didn't they spam the middle more? So I wanted to close on this because this was my takeaway, really. I thought that against the Bucks the first time, it was really frustrating because they were being so stubborn offensively. They were still trying to get that double screen, that double pick play to get Cade an inside lane against the two top defenders on that Bucks zone. And it just was not working. Cade wasn't able to split the space. They were having the low man step up and rotate way down because he didn't have a shooter in the corner. Like, it was just messy. All right. And they kept going to it instead of trying to adjust. Well, against the Blazers, they didn't do that. They had Cade play in the middle a lot more. They had Asar start to attack a little bit more. Against the Bucks, they did the same thing, right? They played out of the middle. They did a little bit more ball movement style offense instead of just a bunch of ISO pick and roll stuff, what they were trying to do with the first time against the Bucks. So, like, could they have done it more? Sure. It was still effective enough where the Bucks had to get out of it later on into the game, and that's pretty much all that you're looking for. So, yeah, against the Bucks the first time, right there with you, though. Let's talk a little bit about Ron Holland, though. And, we can use this to talk about that second Bucks game in a little bit more depth, too. We got to give Isaiah Stewart his flowers. Cade had a great night. But I thought even though Ron struggled from the floor against the Bucks, he has been really good these past, 3 or 4 games, it feels like. Like, he was in that slump. It seemed like he just kind of couldn't pull himself out of the tailspin. And then all of a sudden he did. He had a couple of big scoring nights. And then you have even this game against the Bucks where, sure, he wasn't making his shots, but he was really impactful defensively, which we had started to see slip just a little bit as he was in the midst of that slump there for, the back end of November. So this was really nice to see out of Ron this past week.
Yeah, 100%. And I was thinking the same, even though he wasn't effective really at all from the floor against the Bucks. He got to the line a few times and he was super impactful as a defender. I mean, I don't think his minutes were a negative at all, and he should have been benched by any means for what he was giving you offensively because he was so good defensively and coming off great game where he had 17 points, made 3 threes, and then a couple games earlier, I mean, similar story is his 2 games against the Bucks this week. He struggled from the field, but before that, in that close win against the Hawks, he has another 17-point night, 6 for 8 from the field. Only took 2 threes, but made one of them, and he was good against the Heat too. And even some more minutes. He played 23 minutes that game. So I think he's had a really good stretch, and I think it's just about finding that consistency offensively for him, which will take time. And what really makes me optimistic is I don't think he's the type of guy, we've seen it both from the person he is and how he plays. He's not going to shy away from the opportunities that he gets. He seems like the player, even though coming into the draft, a big talk was the turnovers and decision making and everything. He feels to me like the type of player that is always going to make the right basketball play. And obviously he's only in year 2, so there's a little bit of learning to do there as well. But I think if he gets an open look, even if he's having an off night, he's still going to take it, which I want to see him do. And if he continues to do that and finds a little bit more consistency, maybe he grows into leaps into the starting lineup, and you see even more minutes from him, which I think we're all hoping for.
I've just loved the decisiveness out of him. It felt like he opened the season on a tear, right? And we were all talking, well, if he keeps up with this, maybe you're thinking about putting him in the starting lineup. And, some of that talk has subsided, and that's truthfully, it's due to his play, right? So he's just not been up to that standard until this past week or so of games. He's gotten himself back to the way that he started the year. So I think he's done that through his defensive effort ticked up. He's been a little bit more consistent off ball to my eye. I haven't seen him getting burned or getting lost as much off ball. And he's been really, really good as an on ball defender. I think better than even, honestly, I kind of thought that he could be. He's not a Sar Thompson. He's not that type of lateral athlete, but he is really long. And he stopped that annoying little habit he had of, as a guy's driving into him, wrapping his back arm around the guy's back to get that dumb little foul. He stopped doing stuff like that. And now he's staying in front more. He's taking charges. Like, I thought he's been really impactful on that end, which is maybe helped with the confidence a little bit offensively. Suddenly it seems like he knows where he wants to be. He knows what he wants to do. That drive he had against the Blazers, baseline out of the right corner, where he just exploded right around. I don't even remember who he beat, but he was a blur. It was one dribble to the rim, up, finish. Looked easy, but I don't think I've seen him move that quickly yet, right? It was in a really impressive play. So I think you keep seeing that sort of growth out of him. This confidence is coming. You're right. He's a scorer's mentality. He puts the shots up. He doesn't. Maybe he's too young to care about the misses. I'd be skeptical about. That's Greg Kelser's answer. I'm skeptical because I saw him during that slump, right? And he did get hesitant, but he's not anymore. So I think that decisiveness is really what's pushing him forwards. Pistons fan 11 had a fun question. Holland is so young. The shot looks close. What's his upside as a shooter and a scorer, and maybe give an NBA comp, which honestly, I think I have more fun with these NBA comps now that we've seen more of him rather than with draft profiles. So this actually should be kind of a fun conversation.
Yeah, I mean, some answers that we got thrown in the chat from our guy Robbie, OG Anunoby, and Jaylen Brown. I think those are both solid ones. And Jaylen Brown was one specifically during the draft that he was getting a lot. Obviously, has a lot more growth to do there offensively. Another one I'll throw out, and this one definitely isn't perfect, and this guy is a better rebounder, a better playmaker, but in terms of what he gives his team, I could see Ron Holland almost growing into what Josh Hart gives the Knicks. Sort of that like do-it-all guy. And again, I think Josh Hart's a much better rebounder, much better playmaker, and I mean, maybe Ron grows in those areas too, but Josh Hart is the type of dude who he'll make 4 threes one night, and then the next night maybe it'll be like a 2 for 5 night or whatever it might be. So just in terms of like how he could fit into this roster long term, I think maybe it's something like that, a player who can score but maybe isn't that number 2 guy. I still think Ron Holland, he definitely has like more offensive upside than Josh Hart, I'd say. But maybe you do need a number 2 alongside Ron Holland and Cade. And I think what we've seen so far is Jalen Duren could be that guy. Ivy's obviously still getting back from injury. We'll see what's to come with his growth and his contract situation. And then maybe there's a number 2 player who's not on this team, but you need, if you're going to compete for the Eastern Conference or compete for a title, you need those players like your 3, 4, 5 in the starting lineup have to give you something. And I think that's what Josh Hart does for the Knicks. And I think Ron Holland will certainly always give you something out there. So I like that one a little bit too.
I really love that as a reasonable comp, like that's extremely attainable for him. I think he's already pretty close. It's just, you look at some reasonable improvement in a couple of key spots, like you said, with the jump shot, with the playmaking, ball handling a little bit. I think that's great. I'm going to go, I don't know, don't call me crazy here, but the length that he has, the height that he has, his ability to create space, his explosion, the shot looks close. I'm just gonna say it. Young Paul George. I mean, like if you're like going like 100%, right? Like if he's really gonna figure this out, the guy wants to score the ball. He's not shy about putting the jump shots up. Michael Jordan. Yes, MC313 says Michael Jordan. Okay, good. I'm maybe not that crazy then, but look, he's really good at a couple of key areas that younger Indiana Pacers Paul George was really good at. He's got the lanky, wiry strength. He's a very good on-ball defender. He's very athletic, very quick, very explosive, because you're talking before that gruesome leg injury Paul George had there. And it just his ability to make something happen on his own. You've been seeing it, right? Like you've been seeing him be able to get a look right now. Right? He's figured out the timing on his drives. He's figured out how to, get to a little bit of a step back, make some space, and then usually he's making a pass out of that. But still, you're seeing it. So I think like if you go way, way to the high end, that could be a kind of a mold. I don't know how likely it is he gets there though. But like if you're talking a super high end, like just absolute ceiling or what the upside would be, it's there. That's all.
I mean, the young Paul George was an awesome athlete. I think it is similar to
he was. Yeah, I feel like people forget what he was doing before that injury when he was 24, not 13.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, I like that. I mean, definitely could see like Paul George has more like scoring power, but he was obviously the number 1 for so many teams, and it just like. Clearly, Ron Holland won't have that opportunity on this roster because we all know who the number 1 guy is, but that doesn't mean that he could potentially be the number 2, or even if he's not the number 2, he will provide something. And you just saw him score 17 points and 2 over the last 4 games. So he definitely has that upside. It's just like what he turns into, but I think I've really enjoyed watching him. I mean, I always have since he was drafted into this team, and I think he's only getting better. So we'll see. I still think he has there's a huge range between like his floor and his ceiling, and I don't think he like by saying floor, I don't think he has a low floor or anything like that, but I think he could end up being a bunch of different types of players in this league. So it's fun to see what he'll turn into. Yeah,
you keep watching the ball handling of the jump shot, right? If however far he's going to take those skills is really going to define how high his career can go, at least in terms of offensive upside. Because if he can become a really good ball handler for his size and be a league average or better 3-point shooter and can maybe even do it off the dribble a little bit, all of a sudden you're looking at a guy who's probably scoring more than 20 points per game. If he can't do those things, well then, Josh Hart, DeAndre Hunter's been thrown out. That would be more of a shooting upside. But, if the shooting comes and not the ball handling, okay. But honestly, I'd be a little bit more confident in the ball handling than the shooting at this point. I don't really know which is which. But regardless, I think it's all in front of Ron Holland, right? It's kind of up to him. And it's exciting to have a player like that in Detroit where you can kind of close your eyes and think about the crazy upside that he might have while he's also playing very good basketball right now, right? Like this isn't like a Sekou Doumbouya situation where you had like a 1 month stretch where he was playing really well and then the rest of it not all that great. So you're just hoping maybe he can rekindle that. No, Ron's been playing pretty good basketball for about a full season now, coming up on a full season. Started off slow, pretty strong down the back stretch of last season, and then now he's started off pretty well here again. So you've got a lot of good basketball from Ron, and you can still think about that upside. Last thing before we go into some more questions that we've gotten, I want to talk about Jalen Duren, and I really want you to tell me I'm crazy, but can he force some shots? Like, I mean, I get it. Maybe we want to keep that field goal percentage up close to 65 or 70. And that's wonderful. But like, man, he had 8 shots against the Bucks. Yes, he made 6 of them. He had 11 shots against the Blazers. Like he's got to get up to 13 to 15 shots a night to me. He has to be more. He has to be doing more. He is. You want to talk about maybe a second scorer, second star on this team? We got a month of what that would look like if it was Jalen Duren, and I want that back again, right? I want him to start forcing looks. It was great to start the second half in that second game against Milwaukee, where it seemed like JB told him, "Hey, go get your buckets," all right? And he had 4 quick points, and he drew a foul right off the bat. Like, more of that. Take that pressure off of Cade. I know teams are throwing him different defensive looks. I know he's getting more attention. He's getting more pressure. That's great. Work through it. Start forcing him. Put him up. I don't care anymore. Just put him up.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And just for comparison's sake, so his 33-point game against Dallas and Mexico City, he had 16 field goal attempts, made 13 of them. His other 30-point game following that, he had 14. And then when he scored 31 against the Pacers, he had 13 attempts. So I think, like you said, somewhere in that 12 to 15 range, ideally 13 to 15 is where you want him to be. I think 16 and above is going to be the absolute max. Like, this guy is cooking. Just give him the ball and see what he does with it. But I think on any given night, his floor should almost be getting 12 shots up. That's what he did against the Hawks this week, and he had 21 points. It was his first 20-point game since in almost 2 weeks. So I think you want to see him be in that range somewhere, like, let's say on average somewhere between 12 to 14, but ideally it's 13 to 15, because I think he's still playing like an all-star. I mean, it's to be seen whether he gets one of those reserve spots. I think if the Pistons stay where they are in the standings, it'll be hard to look away from that if he continues doing what he's doing as well. But yeah, we all know the benefit in what he brings is a lob threat, a great pick and roll partner for Cade, and a big who can really get his own offensively. So I think you do want to see more in terms of volume, because the volume he's gotten has looked good. Like, he hasn't had an off night from the floor in a while, really since that Boston loss. So Yeah, definitely want to see him get up more shots. I mean, it's nice to see that at least the low volume against the Bucks last night did come in a win, and he still had 16 points and 16 rebounds. And also in those games where he really like went off from for 30 points, he was getting to the line a little bit more, and he's been doing that a lot. But it's been a little more infrequent over the past few weeks, and I think really that's because teams are defending him a different way and maybe not trying him as much at the rim. But we've seen his growth as a free throw shooter, and those nights where he's really exploded offensively, he's got to the line pretty much 8 times at a minimum. So if you get more shots up, you're gonna go to the line more. So just want to see that. I don't know what has to be changed to make that happen. If it's something as simple as JB just telling him to be more aggressive, and I think it might be a little with the playmaking ability that Duren has as a big. Like, he's trying to make the right play too, but he's definitely played his way into, okay, maybe you can be a bit more passive toward your teammates and go and get your own. So hopefully we just see that a little bit more in the coming weeks.
And look, he's not surprising anybody anymore, right? Like early on in the season, you did see he'd get the ball at the top of the key and like the defender's looking around and he just drives right around him, gets a really easy look. That stuff is gone. So we can recognize that. It's not, Pistons fan 11 says the zone impacting Jalen Duren. Maybe a little, right? But it's not the reason. The Pistons aren't seeing zone all night. It's like, I think they flashed up the stat against in the second game, I believe it was against the Bucks, is they've been facing zone over the past week, like a quarter of the time, just about. So they're still facing a lot of man-to-man. This isn't they're playing against Syracuse here, right? Like they are still seeing a lot of man. I think it's, on the one hand, he's getting a lot more attention. He's not surprising anybody anymore. When he starts to put the ball on the floor, he has smaller guards ripping at it, right? Taking swipes at it, especially under the hoop. That's caused some turnovers. But here's the thing, right? I wanted to, you already brought up one of the things I was going to bring up. One's the free throws, right? The other is just percentages. And I'd like to play both because I think we can kind of, this isn't quite Moneyballing it, but a little bit. All right. Jalen Duren, if he takes 15 shots per game and only makes 9 of them, and I understand that's not how averages work, but that'd be 60%. That'd be a career low field goal percentage for Jalen Duren. That'd be a career low, 9 out of 15. And if you figure that you've got a big who's nimble, really athletic, can create maybe 5 of those looks on his own a night, 4 or 5 of them a night, where he's getting downhill, getting reached, right? Having fouls drawn. Or, well, I should say, how could you not foul the guy that's 6'10", 265 or whatever he's listed at? Like, you're not only going to get 9 out of 15, you're also going to get him to the free throw line where, hey, he's a 70+% free throw shooter. So now you tack on another, let's say that's 18 points. Maybe he's making, I don't know, 3 out of 5 free throw attempts a night. And that's already less than what he's doing now. Right now, he's 5 out of almost 7. So like you've got a 20 points a night scorer right there. Like it's so close. I wish he would start to force the issue a little bit. That's all that I'm saying. And Mimsy 313 brings up that he's a really good passer. Absolutely. I think that comes with this, right? Like if you start to prove now, so he's proven that he needs to be addressed and teams are addressing him. If he can prove that he can beat that, now you need to send more help, which now opens up more passing lanes, right? And you see how this can all stack together. He's really close. Like, let's go back to November again. I'll just read off what he did in that month. It was 21.5 points, 12.5 rebounds, and 2.3 assists in under 32 minutes a night. Force some shots, man. I don't care if it's not a good look. Put them up right now. Let's get those shots up and yeah, I think it's going to open up quite a bit for the rest of the offense as well, Cade included.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think what we're trying to figure out for the rest of the year is Jalen Duren that second star next to Cade. I think what we've seen so far, he certainly can be. And I think he's just going through a little bit of an adjustment period after playing so well and getting different defenses thrown at him. And it says a lot that he's still been really good through this adjustment period, maybe not getting as much volume as we want him to see, but otherwise he's still been super impactful. That hasn't changed in this stretch, and I think it's just a little bit of getting used to the new normal and creating for himself a little bit, which I think he's definitely deserved the right to do. Maybe taking a few extra attempts at the rim as opposed to kicking it out. We know he can do both. It's nice to have all those tools in the toolbox, but Jalen Duren definitely deserves more shots. So hopefully we see him take some in the coming games.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. So like you said, can he be the second star, right? And I know where the Pistons are this season in the records. I know that they're first in the East by 3 games. To me, still, this team is so young. It seems so unlikely that they're going to stick at a 60-plus win pace here. So you figure there's going to be a little bit of regression to the mean. And that's not the end of the world, right? It's not it's not a problem. I'm not saying that they're going to play less than 500 ball the rest of the way. I'm saying, maybe they're just on a 53 win pace instead of the 62 or whatever insane number they'd be at right now if you extrapolate this all the way over 82 games. So that's a heck of a season, right? But you still want to answer some questions, and you've got 1 month of basketball that says that you have where somebody on this team essentially played like the best partner in crime Cade has had his entire career. And I want to see if he can do that the entire year. Can Jalen Duren put up 20 plus points a night the rest of this season and be impactful in that way? And maybe you see the assists start to go up too, because he keeps getting that sort of attention. Can he do it in the playoffs, right? Because this is a playoff team. So can he be that impactful in the playoffs where you've got this non-traditional kind of setup where it's actually your point guard and your center that are your big time shot makers and creators, and you've got a bunch of players around that seem to make it work with your Duncan Robinson, your Tobias Harris, or Isaiah Stewart, right? Player Jaden Ivey right now, players that can make some shots and do some things in their own right, but really the focal points are your 1 and your 5, and not just in the pick and roll. That's unusual, right? That's not something you see a lot in the NBA, but it's working right now. Can it actually work at scale? I think that's a huge question. And if the answer is yes, right? If you see it the rest of the year, if you see it in the playoffs, then that's something that we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but we've for the longest time said, well, the number 2 scorer, the second star, right? They're probably not on this roster. That might be wrong. And if that's wrong, that's huge, right, for this team moving forward. So that's where I'm at. I want to see it. I think that's the biggest question left for Duren, because at this point you pay him, right? He's a pillar for this team offensively, but if you can up that scale, and now he's not only an all-star, but maybe he just gets a little bit of quiet all-NBA third team discussion right down the stretch. He's not going to get that, but maybe he gets in the conversation and helps you win a playoff series, scoring a bunch. Man, if they have that, and they have that in 2 guys that are less than 24 years old, right? How old's Cade now? Isn't he? I thought he was 23, 24. They're both under 25. Duren's super young. Point is, you could lock that up and you can have that for a long time, right? You can have that for a long time. And that's great when you're looking at Ron Holland with all this potential. You're still looking at Asar Thompson and what he can do defensively. It just opens up so much for this team. So that's the question I want to answer down the stretch. Last 2 that I'll kind of bake into one, and then we'll get to some of our pre-submitted questions. Sharon Dalton says, question, does the play of Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren remind you of Rasheed Wallace and Ben Wallace? And related, Michael Davenport says, question for maybe near the end, thoughts on replacing Tobias Harris in the starting lineup with Isaiah Stewart?
So about Sheed and Ben, my question to you is who is who? You think
Right. That's what I was thinking too. Because like
Stu is Ben?
Duran's not Ben.
Yeah, right. Right. And that's okay. Like that's not and I think I mean you're talking about two guys who were super impactful and literally keys. And so I know the going to work team was 5 stars, not 1 star, but 2 guys who really starred on a championship team. I think like it's funny because I'd say Stu is Ben, but he also has a little like he has both Ben Wallace and Rasheed Wallace energy. So I think maybe that would make Duran Sheed, and I think it does make sense a bit just with like everything that Duran gives you offensively compared to the defender Stu is and that Ben Wallace was. So I can see the comparison. I don't think I'm ready to go there yet. But I think you could definitely draw some healthy comparisons. And the good thing about Stu and Duran is like we've talked about guys who are made to be on the Pistons. I think that they're both one of them. I'd say not a knock on Duran, but I'd say especially Stu with everything we've seen out of him and just the type of player he is. So I like the comparison. I don't think it's perfect, but I think it's there a little bit.
All right, so maybe Duran's got a little bit of Sheed in him, but I'd be a little. Sheed could really shoot it, right? Duran really can't. And honestly, Duran can do a little bit more off the bounce than Sheed really could either. So I don't know. I don't know about that one. I don't know if JD really has a comparison to a Piston in former Piston 4 or a 5, right? Because you start throwing in some 4s, old school 4s as well there. But can I give you a different one for Isaiah Stewart that's not Ben Wallace? He's got a little Bill Laimbeer to me.
That's what I was gonna guess.
That's right. Yeah, I mean he could shoot it, right? Ben could never shoot it. Stewart, as amazing a shot blocker and defender as he is, he can't put his chin on the rim like Ben could. He's not a lob threat like Ben was. He certainly plays with that motor, but that all sounds quite a bit like Bill Laimbeer, a little bit of a slightly undersized, right? Great shot blocker, tough as nails, will actually quite literally fight you. That's probably why that Bobby Portis Isaiah Stewart matchup is always appointment viewing TV. Like those are 2 guys that really will throw some hands out there. They are not just posturing. They do mean it. So he's got that little bit of bad boy in him. Stu does, and I don't know. If I had to pick a Piston center from history, I might go Bill Laimbeer instead of Ben Wallace. I know that they're both undersized, so that's been the comparison since Stu got drafted, but I like Bill a little bit more.
Yeah, I like that. And I think the answer here might be like Isaiah Stewart has a little bit of Rasheed, a little bit of Ben in him. I mean, going back even further, now I'm just thinking of like trying to make a Jalen Duran comp, and this one isn't perfect either, but way back in the day, Bob Lanier was that offensive big and everything. And
I knew where you were going with that.
I'm not going to claim I was watching Bob Lanier Pistons games because I wasn't even alive. But I do know that they're not the same type of player, but just in terms of what they do offensively, as well as like as a rebounder, maybe that's one, but I don't think there's a perfect comp there either.
All right, let's get to that second one here. So replacing Tobias Harris in the starting lineup with Stewart. What would you think about that?
So, I mean, it worked against the Bucks. Obviously, I think it worked because Stewart shot the ball. I don't hate it, especially when like we've talked about a while ago. What will the Pistons bring Tobias Harris back when his contract is up? If he doesn't get traded, even if he does get traded, if he plays for another team and they're not interested in bringing him back, he wants to come back to the Pistons. Maybe he does come back on I don't know if next year he's necessarily going to be on a veteran minimum deal, but somewhere close to that, and develops into that bench veteran that we know he's still capable, but also he already is, but he will continue to bring a lot to the locker room, similar to some guys that we've seen stick around with teams well past their prime years and everything. I think Tobias could end up playing his career out like that in Detroit. We know he likes to be here. I wouldn't limit it to just Stu, though. Like we talked about Ron Holland before. What if Ron Holland's shot gets a little bit better and you want to keep bringing Stu up off the bench for what he brings as a defender and also as a shooter? So I like it. I mean, it clearly worked, and the talk of playing like Stewart and Duren and Hasar on the floor at the same time. And what does that mean for your backup big when you have Duren and Stu out there together? Paul Reed's the answer right now, but maybe he won't always be. So I think you could even add Ron Holland into the conversation with his growth, or maybe there's a similar player like that. I think the only other option, if you put Tobias on the bench, does Jaden Ivey go back into the starting lineup? But that makes you a lot smaller, and Ivy, of course, has to shoot it as well. And then you have Asar and Duren. Like I don't know if Asar, it makes the defense a lot more tricky if Ivy's in the starting lineup. So I think long term, I don't think Tobias will be replaced immediately, because we still see when he's available, he's impactful. He's able to give this team good buckets. But in the long term, he's probably not always going to be a starter if he sticks around. And I think there are a number of different ways that you can slice it. But if Tobias does miss extended time right now, I'd say just keep Isaiah Stewart in the starting lineup after how it worked against Milwaukee and see what happens. I mean, if the shots aren't falling, then you can make a change from there. But I liked what I saw against the Bucks.
Yeah, so I'm with Robbie here in the chat. It says he doesn't think it's a hot take anymore to say Stewart deserves the starting power forward spot. That's where I'm at. Isaiah Stewart, as long as he's shooting threes, he's a better 3-point shooter than Tobias Harris. All right, that solves your offensive issue. It's actually a step up. He is he not the best defensive center in the NBA? JB Bickerstaff says it's not even close. I think your best defensive center in the NBA ought to be playing a starter's workload of minutes, right? And he certainly can. Offensively, it works actually pretty great now that Jalen Duren is going to have the ball in his hands as much as he's been having it. So that's perfect. He creates space for Duren, right? And for Cade. That's exactly what you want to see. So with him and Duncan Robinson out in the starting lineup, at least in the regular season, not too worried about Asar Thompson. Boom, you've solved that one offensively. I agree that Tobias is great for the locker room. I think he'll be great for the locker room off the bench as well. This shouldn't be any harder than it is. Isaiah Stewart is probably the third best player on the team right now. Him or Asar Thompson are sitting in that third spot, and whoever's not third is fourth. Regardless, we're not talking about sixth or seventh or eighth. We're talking about one of your top 5 best, most impactful players. He needs to be starting games. He needs to be playing closer to 30 minutes a night. You stick him at the 4, rotate him back to be the backup 5 too. That's how you get him up to 30, and you keep Tobias Harris and Ron Holland both getting plenty of minutes in this rotation. That's how you do it. So that's what I want to see. I'm right there with it. So with Sharon's question earlier, like, are they Sheed and Ben? No, they're unique. There's something different, but it's exciting, and it's exactly the tone that this Pistons team wants to set. They want to dominate the paint. That's how you dominate the paint. Are you going to get into weird situations every now and again, like Boston put them in, where you're going to have Isaiah Stewart switching out onto Jaylen Brown for quite a few, defensive sets? Yes, that's going to happen. I think it's worth it anyway. Let's get to a couple of our pre-submitted questions here. So first, was Ivy brought up too soon? This is from Dreamscraper00. The rotation is a problem right now, and it's because we got healthy and need to pay or play players we already paid, but some others who are being paid less have already stepped up. So did the Pistons activate and bring Ivy up too soon, Blake?
I'm going to say, I don't think, I mean, obviously if health is a factor, it can be too soon, but I don't think you can really bring Ivy up too soon because he missed so much time that, it's going to take a bit to get his sea legs. And I don't think when we're discussing this is fair to Dream Scraper, because I think he posted this question before the game against Milwaukee, where Ivy looked great. Obviously, he only played 16 minutes, but he made 3 huge threes that really opened up the game and sort of like helped the Pistons get the win. The Bucks weren't able to come back after that. We've definitely seen a ton of inconsistency from Ivy out of the jump, but I think that's to be expected. If it lasts through the season, then I think it's a different conversation. But just in general, I think there's going to be ups and downs when you're coming back from missing so much time that you want to get him back in live NBA action as soon as possible, because it will take that time. And yeah, it won't always be pretty, but we saw a great game against the Bucks, and he was good in the other game against the Bucks too. He had 15 points in that night. So I think there will be ups and downs, and I get the conversation around maybe Ivy needed a little bit more time, but I do think just with the amount of time he missed, you want to get him back on the floor as soon as you can, especially with the questions that you have to answer with him and having a deal pending and what his future is going to be like with the team.
Yeah, and if you want to say like he needed more time on the back burner, right, getting ramped up in practices and stuff like that, okay, that's one thing, right? The team obviously disagrees with that. That's why they played him in the first place. But I think like you got to understand with the G League, Jaden Ivey's way too good for the G League. That's not really beneficial to him. You're just kind of risking injury for Ivy in something that's not really helping him get up to speed for NBA game action. Look what Marcus Sasser did in his one Motor City Cruise game. He's been out for almost as long as Ivy has been. Obviously not last year, but this season they've been out just about the same amount of time, and Sasser kind of lit it up. Like the G League is just not a place where defense is really played, and it's also not a place with good defensive bigs in particular, because if you are over 6'10", can rebound and block shots, an NBA team is calling you up and asking you to play some games with them, right? Tolu Smith is kind of the unusual case. He's the exception there. He's not the rule. There are far more like 6'8" centers in the G League than there are Tolu Smith. So you've got a player like Jaden Ivey, and to an extent like Marcus Sasser too. What does Jaden Ivey do really well? Well, he's really athletic. He's really fast. He blows by perimeter defenders, and he likes to finish at the rim. What does the G League not have a lot of? Good perimeter defenders or rim protectors. That's just not helpful or translatable to Jaden Ivey at all. So I'm with you. I don't think that he needed G League minutes or anything like that. He's rusty. He's missed almost a year of basketball. And that's really tough to do. So you just got to give him a little bit of time. And, I think everything's going to turn out just fine with him. He's too talented and works too hard to not get back to where he was for an injury that really didn't have a bunch of ligament damage or anything like that. It's just kind of a strength and timing thing. And, he'll get it back. So we just got to wait. We got 2 questions that are pretty related here. First, from JP423, says, are Detroit fans falling a little too in love with the current roster? I understand not wanting to trade away all the Pistons assets and young talent, but it's clear they need shooting. And then Hitch says, who are some 3-point shooters that the Pistons could acquire via trade to keep teams honest and not play a zone the entire game? Is anyone specifically on the trade block that seems attainable? So what do you think about this? And we'll kind of close it out here, right? Are we all maybe collectively just falling a little bit too in love with this roster and not wanting to make a move? And then if we are and do need to make a move, who are some shooters, right, that you got your eye on here as we kind of approach a deadline?
I don't think that they're necessarily falling too in love with the roster, just because I think it was built as in the best possible way it could have been, considering the Malik Beasley circumstances in the offseason. And I mean, if we're being fully honest, I think the roster is built to put you in prime position for a trade. We just haven't seen a trade happen. And I'm not saying that Trajan Langdon built this roster thinking he was going to trade numerous players, like contracts and his young pieces. But if he wanted to, and there was the right deal out there, then he certainly could. The Pistons have all their draft picks, and they have contracts and interesting young players that other teams will want. So I think we're still in a little bit of a wait and see period and see how the rest of the season goes. If you do need to bring in a shooter at the deadline, I think there will be options that won't be huge, like give up all your draft picks or take back a huge contract. I'm sort of joking here, but what would it take to get Cam Spencer out of Memphis or Pat Spencer out of Warriors? Like, those dudes have been awesome over recent weeks. And then other than that, like in terms of available 3-point shooters, I just look at teams who are maybe looking to make a deal themselves and need some help to get it across the door. Like if Golden State does something, can you get Buddy Hield for next to nothing? It doesn't make sense with Duncan. I don't know, but excuse me, that's a name to watch.
Yeah, I think at least for me, like I'm so in love with the roster that I'm not really interested in a star trade anymore. At least right now. Like let's let the season play out. Let's let the playoffs play out. Let's give Duren a chance to establish that that's the type of offensive player that he is. I'm curious. I want to see that. So, I don't really want a Trey Murphy. I don't really want a big, a James Harden or any sort of like big superstar, big time scorer type of move. I think on the one hand, it's going to cost too much, and it kind of ruins that discovery process that I think the team is going through right now and will continue to go through the rest of the year. So that's not where my eyes are. I do agree, though, that the team definitely needs more shooting. So they're going to need to find a shooter here at the deadline. Really, the only two, at least this early on, that I really have my eye on would be first, Herb Jones. I know his shot's a little bit down this year, but he's been a good shooter in the past. And if you could add Herb Jones to this roster and just like 1-for-1 swap that starting lineup position with Duncan Robinson, the defense would be insane for that starting lineup with Jones and Asar and maybe Isaiah Stewart too. That is 3 all NBA defense caliber guys surrounding on the perimeter and in the back end Cade Cunningham, who's a pretty good defender for the type of scorer that he is, and a more offensive minded center. I don't think you could get a much better setup structurally than that. That said, Herb Jones is expensive. It's probably a minimum of Ivy and a first round pick. So if that's unacceptable to you, then you probably don't want Herb Jones. The other name that I've thought of a lot was Keon Ellis. I think he'd be a good kind of spark plug. He's a bit undersized, but very good defender. Honestly, kind of in that like Davion Mitchell kind of mold in Miami, which is funny because they were both on the Kings there for a minute. And maybe, I think that they're similar archetypes. So Keon Ellis could be interesting. I believe he does fit into that traded player exception that the Pistons have from that Dennis Schroeder trade. Of course, though, Keon Ellis himself is pretty young, so I'm sure the Kings will want something back. It won't be for free, which means what are you giving up for a guy like Keon Ellis? But those are the two names that I'm looking at. I just think if you could add a 3-and-D player that can supplant Robinson. And you keep Robinson. Don't get rid of Robinson, but you keep Robinson. You just bring him off the bench in some high minutes in that same role they used for Beasley last year. And if you could just get a 3-and-D player in that starting lineup, all of a sudden you can't single out Robinson if you're the Celtics looking for an easy bucket, right? That'd be pretty great for this team, in my opinion. How they do that, though, I don't really know.
Yeah, another name I'll throw out, and this goes to Pistons fan comment, are guys on benches who don't get to shoot. I mean, this guy gets to shoot, but what's Washington going to do if you can get Corey Kispert out of there? He doesn't fully match with like the D side of things, but he definitely helps with the shooting problem. And he has a pretty affordable contract, and he's under team control for 3 more seasons after this year at a good price with a club option on the last year of his deal. So, like, I think Washington could be in a situation where they're trying to absorb other teams' bad contracts in exchange for draft capital or interesting young guys. And maybe Corey Kispert's, he's 26, so he's still a young player who could help them down the line, but maybe they need to move off that money to get a deal done, and the Pistons can slide in there and get Corey Kispert for, I don't think it would be free, but maybe for a lesser price. So that's just another one too. The other one I was thinking of is Keon Ellis as well, because we know he's a good defender and he's been shooting the ball well this year, and the Kings they just need to fully blow it up. We'll see if they can do that with the big contracts they have available, but it would definitely be like Keon Ellis, crazily, is probably one of their most valuable trade assets in terms of what they could get back.
Yeah, he definitely is. So it wouldn't be cheap at all. And I think if you start going up in price, I'd rather have Herb Jones because of the size. But with the Pelicans, I'm sure there's going to be a pretty good bidding war going for Herb Jones. He's a great player, not really a scorer, more in that maybe kind of like a Dyson Daniels type mold, right? Type of player, but he can shoot it for sure. So Herb Jones would be my number one, but that's asking a lot, honestly, with especially how motivated New Orleans would be to get a pick back, if not multiple. Which hey, if they're able to get a Desmond Bane type package for Herb Jones, good for them. I'm not willing to pay it. Speaking of Desmond Bane, man, I wish Anthony Black was not having as good of a season as he is. I would have absolutely had him circled, starred, arrows pointing at his name on a blackboard as the number one target here for Detroit if the Magic needed a little bit more ball handling. But unfortunately for us as Pistons fans, Anthony Black is doing really, really well there in Orlando. I guess, hey, maybe if you want a pipe dream, like, is he playing so well Jalen Suggs is expendable? I don't know. Like that. Now you're just dreaming. So probably not. But my 2 names right now, Herb Jones, Keon Ellis. Beyond that, I think it's still too early to really know what the trade market's shaping up to be. But that said, I think it's perfectly reasonable to be in love with this roster and not want to spend a ton, right? And that's kind of where I'm at. I don't want a big trade, just a 3-and-D to kind of help this roster into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I know, like, I'm just where I am in the trade season right now. It's just looking at the starts and teams who might be trying to move off some of their players for expiring deals and draft picks, and one of those teams is the Mavericks. And I mean, I know the big name with them is Anthony Davis in the trade market, but
Pass.
I don't, what if, I'm not saying him for the Pistons, but what if, like, you could somehow get Max Christie? I don't know that they'll necessarily give him up because Nico Harrison isn't there anymore, but he was a big piece in the Luka Doncic deal. And then PJ Washington's 5 years older than Christie, so maybe that's another one as well. I mean, is not nearly as good of a 3-point shooter, but just in general, I'd look at teams who are off to bad starts and might be looking to punt in different directions and seeing who they have and might be willing to part with.
Michael Dampier brings up a good one. We can close out on this, but New Orleans, Jordan Hawkins is interesting, but he doesn't play defense. That's correct. He also hasn't been shooting it very well. He was certainly the best shooter in that draft, so I do like that as a flyer. If you could get kind of a buy low on Jordan Hawkins and try to ramp up that three-point shot, it was so good for him in college. It is hard to believe that he is not a better shooter than he's shown so far. Maybe that's a volume and opportunity thing. I don't know. I know he's kind of fallen a little bit in the minutes. So, that is a name I would like, and I think it'd be pretty cheap. It's very much a flyer at this point. You're not guaranteed that you're getting some exceptional shooter like it looked like he would be when he was coming out of college. But yeah, that's a good name for sure.
Could I interest you in one Sadiq Bey? I'm partly kidding.
Honestly, you could. I wouldn't. Not a lot. Not super interested. But for the right price, getting Sadiq back, he's a solid player.
And Troy Weaver
and a good shooter. He's just a little streaky as well. And yeah, you're right. I mean, that's Troy's guy. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah. I let the transition go by when we were talking about the Magic, but we did get a question earlier about the NBA Cup and who we think is going to win it. So why don't we close out? Who do you think is going to win the NBA Cup?
I mean, it's OKC, right? I mean, it has to be. They've lost one game.
Yeah, I mean, they're the clear favorite to me. Just looking at the bracket, I like the Lakers. I really like how the Lakers have been playing. And I mean, Luka is back after the birth of his second kid, and he's been incredible. Reeves has been incredible. LeBron obviously isn't what he once was, but I mean, that game where he had the game-winning assist to Rui and broke his streak was poetic. I think the Lakers have been good. And I mean, if you look on the East side, I think it's a little more tough, but someone has to come out of the East. Maybe the Knicks get it done. But I don't know. I think if I had to pick anyone other than the Thunder, I would pick the Lakers. And dare I say that they have NBA Cup championship experience, if that's a thing already.
They do.
Luka Doncic doesn't, but
they got the banner to prove it.
Yeah, 100%. So
dark horse Raptors.
Yeah, I would like them too. They just haven't been playing good as of recent, but
they've not. But I think if you're looking at the East side, and if someone from the East is going to win it, they've got to have the size and length to really match up with OKC. That's pretty much just Orlando or Toronto, and Orlando's not a fun pick. We all know they're very good.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We can enjoy those games while the Pistons aren't playing this week, and unfortunately, the Pistons are not playing in one of those games. So they'll get to it at some point, though. I'm confident they'll get their NBA Cup demons away if that's a true thing. But shout out to everyone for joining us. Reminder, you can call our phone line to ask a question and hear your voice on the show. The number for that is 313-355-2717. And special thanks to Sean Corp, the managing editor of Detroit Bad Boys, for supporting this show. And shout out to you guys for all the great questions and talking points. We'll catch you next week, whether on your commute or live with us on YouTube. We can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you all.